this entire film is a lawsuit waiting to happen. You know, maybe it's me. Maybe I just don't get British humor. Or maybe it's because I didn't watch this when I was a child, because I'm not very proud to admit, but back when everyone was on the Bridget Jones Diary train, I wasn't really interested in it. Renée Zellweger wasn't an actress that pulled me to the movies, and because I wasn't really interested in the film, my dad, who was the one that kept me constantly supplied with the movies I did want to watch, did not bother getting it on DVD when it had its own release. So, the first time I saw this film was a couple of weeks ago for this video, in the good and chaotic year that is 2025. And whilst I spent about 95 minutes mouth agape at the ludicrousness on my screen, I wondered if maybe I was in some sort of simulation, because there is no way this film totally missed what it should be focusing on, right? Right? I.e. that certain people should be in jail? Because the first time a friend, actually more an acquaintance, tried pitching the film to me, when I got around to admitting that I'd never seen it, was that Bridget Jones' Diary was what you get if Pride and Prejudice happened in the 21st century and Elizabeth Bennet was a working girl. And now that I've seen it, I really wish to have a sit down with her and whoever the hell marketed this film, because there is absolutely no way this can be equated to Pride and Prejudice. Not because Daniel wasn't a good modern spin on Willoughby, he is, and is played spectacularly well by Hugh Grant, who, not gonna lie, now, I see why some of the girlies thought him really hot back in the day. In the film, he was oozing sex. Sex that he should absolutely not have been oozing all over the office, but we'll get to that shortly. But yeah, Hugh Grant played the hell out of Daniel, aka Willoughby, aka skeevy piece of shit to the hilt, and it was great. Colin Firth being cast as Mark was delicious, and I'm sure everyone had a laugh that they had cast Mr. Darcy to play Mr. Darcy. Quick sidebar, although the 2005 Pride and Prejudice will always be my absolute favorite of the adaptations, I'm sorry. They made Anne sexy to my teenagers, and I didn't know Anne Clench could scream such yearning until I watched that film. Matthew McFadden, the GOAT. Also, I'm still counting the days and years until Keira Knightley decides to marry me. I'm just putting it out there, willing it into the universe. But anyway, although the 2005 Pride and Prejudice is my absolute favorite, the 1995 Pride and Prejudice is a very close second. And I'm just tickled pink that they cast Colin Firth for this movie, because if anything saved Bridget Jones' Diary for me, it was Colin Firth as Mark Darcy. I don't make the rules, I just follow Mr. Darcy. But anyway, although they were spot on in the characterization of Mark and Daniel and in who they cast to play them, the film absolutely lost me in Renee's Bridget. Like, I can't be the only person who watched the film and thought, Liz Bennet, where? Because that woman with absolutely zero self-esteem cannot be the Elizabeth Bennet, right? Right? But like I said, maybe it's me just not getting British humor, because all I kept thinking was, he should be in jail. He should be in jail. They should all be in jail. And before I go further into that, a synopsis for those who have never seen the film. Bridget Jones' Diary follows 32-year-old Bridget. She is single and at the turn of the new year hopes to be able to cut down on her excesses in said new year. Namely, lose weight, cut down on all the cigarette smoking, the excessive drinking, and her unrelenting fantasies about her boss, Daniel. And this epiphany is brought on by the fact that at the Christmas party hosted by her parent, her mother tried setting her up with Mark Darcy, who in typical Mr. Darcy fashion, judges her for being improper and vulgar. Remember the tons of smoking and drinking I mentioned earlier? They do not a good first impression make on Mr. Darcy. The only problem, however, is that Darcy, as always, says it a tad bit loud and is overheard by Bridget, who considers this a sign for her to turn her life around, hence the resolution. Except all of that goes out the window when the new year has Daniel finally start paying attention to Bridget, who has all her fantasies fulfilled as they start dating and have a ton of hot sex. In the midst of this, because Bridget and Daniel had run into Mark and his colleague Natasha at a book launch event, Daniel tells Bridget that he and Mark used to be best friends until he caught Mark having sex with his fiancée, at which point their engagement and his friendship with Mark was over. Bridget, as expected, buys into this, and her impression of Mark sours. But things with her and Daniel continue to go splendidly well, until she unexpectedly pops into his apartment one day and finds out that he's been cheating on her with another colleague, but this one is from their company's branch in the US. Anyway, Bridget breaks things off with Daniel and has to, as expected, undergo a career change. Kids, this is why you don't fuck your boss. But as I was saying, Bridget changes jobs, becomes a TV presenter, and thanks to Mark Darcy's help, is able to nab an exclusive interview that makes her a darling at her new place of work. Oh, and I missed the point where at a dinner event prior, Mark had given her the Darcy speech of, even though you are several shades of not right and vulgar and hopeless, I like you just the way you are. Because the entire plot of this movie is to have Bridget be this woman who is totally desperate for love. She ignores everything that comes before the I like you just the way you are and hones in on that instead. The bar is in hell, you all. The bar is in hell. Anyway, after Mark helps her score a coup at work with a brilliant interview, we fast forward a couple of days. I think. I'm not sure. Honestly, the way this film handles time and the passage of it was quite interesting, because half of the time I was confused about how long the events that had happened were and what passed in between them. For example, how long was Bridget and Daniel's relationship before she caught him cheating? Like, I don't know the answer to that, for example. But as I was saying, a couple of days later, it is Bridget's birthday, and Mark shows up to help her with cooking dinner for her friends and the mini party that they are throwing for her. Everyone's having a good time amidst the abysmal state of the meal that Bridget cooked, when Daniel shows up, wine in hand, hoping he can rekindle things with Bridget. He and Mark get into a big fight, and Bridget breaks up the fight, tells Mark that she understands why Daniel would be so angry at him considering how things played out. A statement that has Mark walking away still pissed, and she turns around and kicks Daniel to the curb as well, an act that made me cheer for her. Sorry, y'all. I repeat, the bar is in hell, so that was the highlight of the film for me. Anyway, fast forward still more days, and it's the day of Mark's family dinner that Bridget and her parents are invited to. And this is when Bridget is told by her mother that the one who was cheated on was actually Mark, who was the one that walked in on Daniel and his wife in the act. Bridget realizes she screwed things so badly and quickly drives her parents to the function, hoping to apologize to Mark and get a second chance with him. Except that he and Natasha had just been offered a job in New York, and they were both living with a potential engagement in their future. Bridget isn't able to convince Mark to change his mind, and her friends show up a couple of days later to take her on a trip to Paris to cheer her on. I want friends like that too, damn it. Someone fly me to Paris. Or drive me to Paris. Either one, I'm fine. Anyway, Mark shows up just in time to ruin the Paris trip, informing Bridget that he didn't take the New York job offer. And just before Bridget and he are able to kiss, she realizes that she doesn't have her sexy underwear on, runs in to change, which gives Mark the opportunity to read her diary that was conveniently lying open and in which she had written quite a number of scathing things about him back when she couldn't stand his ass. He leaves her apartment, and Bridget comes out in only her underwear and a shirt, realizes what happened, grabs a bigger shirt, but still not enough to cover her ass, and on this still snowing night decides to race out in said shirt and her let's have some sexy times panties, searching for a Mark who said that, oh, he had only left to get her a new diary. They kiss, end of the film. This right here is why romance is dead, you all. It's why romance is dead. But anyways, after I had yapped non-stop about the plot of this film, time for us to come back around to the main point I brought up as the title of this video, which is that Bridget Jones tries its damnedest to use humor to have us ignore just how inappropriate its premise is, and the fact that there should be a lawsuit. And we'll start with the elephant in the room, Daniel Cleaver. I do not give a rat's asshole that is hot and played by an oozing sex appeal Hugh Grant. Like I said earlier in the video, that sex appeal should not be in the workplace. The problem isn't that he's a lying, cheating scum. What the film should have focused on is the fact that he's a lying, cheating scum that is her boss. Who cares that he cannot keep his dick in his pants? What we should have dwelled on is the fact that he cannot keep his dick in his pants and away from the women he's working with. That is what is criminal. Daniel Cleaver should be in jail. They should toss him in and throw away the key. I don't care that Bridget is 32. There is nothing saying that this hasn't been what he's been doing since with much younger colleagues. We are meant to read Daniel as a predator who actively goes after the women he works with. It's the reason why when Bridget has a very public I quit moment, her colleagues were visibly proud of her. What I wish happened instead was that she had followed it up with the, and you'll be hearing from my lawyer, because the person who initiated the affair was Daniel, and we have documentation in her damn diary. I mean, I'm not losing my mind, right? He legit emailed her work email, talking about her not wearing a skirt and mentioned her barely see-through blouse. In an email he sent to her whilst they were at work, and he was looking at her all sleazy and skeevy. She should be calling a lawyer. Better yet, she should be calling Mark Darcy, who is a lawyer. Like, I kept waiting throughout the entire film for us to get the confirmation of that Daniel, and by extension the company, was hit with the sexual harassment suit to beat all sexual harassment lawsuits, because not only was Daniel openly talking to her with sexually explicit language through work communication channels, but everybody knew it, and yet we do not get that. Bridget Jones tries to spin this as a love triangle where she's caught between these two men, and not the fact that one of them is her boss who propositioned her while she was working for him. And the reason why I know that the film doesn't care is because they kind of tongue-in-cheek it's a bit of British humor love kind of way, and they imply the same thing is happening with her new boss at the television station, that the reason why he gave her the job was because she mentioned that she needed to leave her former place of work because she had had sex with her boss. He heard that, hired her on the spot, and on her first appearance on air wanted her to slide down a firehouse pole with the camera panning up her ass ends. When she slid way too fast, said ass was all over everybody's news feed. And it was again played off as a ha 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 ha. It's a bit of a laugh, you know, British humor and all. And I'm over here like, girl, Bridget, you're letting millions walk away from you. I mean, sure, it wouldn't give you a boyfriend, but £1 million settlement from the two morons you were working with will put you nicely in an island somewhere on a vacation where you can meet the love of your life that isn't your skeevy boss. Bosses. Plural. I know Bridget Jones' Diary was a movie that broke a lot of norms and revolutionized the chick flick genre of films, but for me, it just leaves such a strange taste in my mouth. Because her old boss basically sexually harassed her into having a relationship with him. Yes, she's been fantasizing about it and she did accept his advances, but it doesn't take away the fact that he is the one in a position of authority over her. And it is why when their relationship went sour, she was the one that had to leave. And then you have her new boss looking for ways in which he can overtly sexualize her on camera whilst waiting for when he would have his turn to get into a relationship with her, which is what he implied in the closing credits after he was informed that she now had a boyfriend. And it's all played off as a laugh that just had me scratching my head, because not to be the one that keeps bringing it up, but both Bridget Jones' Diary and Legally Blonde were released in the exact same year. Yet one called out the inappropriateness of a teacher and boss figure hitting on a subordinate as a clear case of sexual harassment, and the other plays it off as a laugh and a bit of a joke. And I don't know, but it just makes me think that 2021 is a very interesting and polarizing year, you know? Because both films have made it to become the cultural zeitgeist of our generation and address these fundamental topics in such different ways. But then again, Elle Woods has more self-respect in a little pinky than Bridget Jones was allowed to have in her entire body, which is so unfair because, like I said earlier, Elizabeth Bennet deserves better. Fucking hell. And for those who want to know, yes, I will be watching and making videos on the rest of the Bridget Jones movies. Next week's Romcom Ganda video is Bridget Jones, The Edge of Reason, so keep an eye out for that. But yeah, these are my thoughts. I would, as always, love to hear yours, whether or not you agree with me. Please drop them in the comments. As always, like this video if you've watched this far and haven't done so yet. Share this if you want. Support me on Patreon if you can. And until tomorrow's video, do remember, obsessing over the things you love, perfectly valid coping mechanism.